Welcome to Geek Zone Wrestling, the podcast by wrestling fans who just want to talk about wrestling. I'm Kyle.
I'm Danny.
And today tonight, this morning, whenever you're listening, if you're listening, we wanted to talk about the evolution of finishers, in air quotes, and how some have been turned into very normalized moves.
Yeah, every day, everyone.
And, like the difference between how finishers were back then compared to now, why they've changed, and yada yada yada.
So going way back, moves were not as technical as they are now.
And they were not overly creative.
No, I mean some of the biggies were obviously Hogan's leg drop,
Ultimate Warrior Splash,
Randy Macho Man Savage elbow from the top rope. You had guys like Ricky the Dragon that did a flying crossbody off the top.
And then, like Andre the Giant didn't really even have to do anything.
So finishers were. It almost seemed like they were only given to specific wrestlers at the time. It wasn't like everybody had their own. There were some superstars that were clearly the elites that were given a solid finisher.
Well, and it was basically just, it gave you the excitement of, oh man, he hit that move, that means it's over.
Yeah. I mean, I know one of my favorites of all time was the Rock and Roll Express. They did a double drop kick. That was their finisher.
Yeah. And nowadays, the drop kick is
mundane.
Yeah. And then, like, you have, I think the last time a drop kick was used as a finisher was like Maven.
Yeah, I can't recall one.
And otherwise, people just use drop kicks. I mean, not really necessarily as just a regular move, but, something like, oh, hey, guy's running at me, I'll drop kick.
Yeah. I mean, it's not a shocking, like, oh my god, he hit the drop kick. Yeah. No, it's just, oh, okay. Yeah, I see that.
And these days, it's like, the sweet chin music has now turned into everybody and their grandmothers using a super kick. Of course, their grandmother dislocates her hip, but, I mean, she still lands the kick. The dislocating actually helps. The leg just, flies up. The spear has been overused now.
Yeah, I mean, it's like it started with Goldberg.
And it was because he was, football player and he'd come running in, it'd be like, oh, damn, that looked like it hurt. And now it's just like everybody
has a spear.
And Edge was, doing
Edge was right
WWE.
around that time, yeah.
And at least his was different. Like, he would go to the side and then, whip his hair, so it looked different. But then you got guys like Bobby Lashley who, twirls himself as he spears. Batista hit it, and it just sort of it was basically a shoulder block to their midsection.
Right.
If Roman Reigns hits it, Jey Uso hits it, it's become a very common move. It's sort of like how the sharpshooter is for submissions.
Yeah, it was Bret Hart's, and then it turned into everybody's.
Yeah. Figure 4, another one.
Yeah.
It started as a signature move that, only certain people had. Now it's like anybody can just whip it out.
The Boston Crab, same thing. I mean, that was a finisher. Now it's just a time
Camel
killer.
Clutch.
Yeah, camel clutch. Now those are just kind of like time killers within matches. Like when they go to a commercial break, they'll slap on a camel clutch or a Boston Crab or something to eat up some of that time.
Yeah. But going back to how they've changed, back then the moves were not overly flashy. It was just you hit it, signals the end. Nowadays, it's like, a new person comes in, if their finishing move doesn't look like it would finish somebody off, you're like, what the hell was that?
Yeah. That's why it's hard to believe, some of them, when people come in and they have like a power slam.
Like Braun Strowman.
The
only difference is a guy that size, like you're up high and he gives a running start. That's a lot of momentum.
It is.
So from him, it could potentially knock the wind right out of somebody.
Now, I mean, people like who had the power slam, Dr. Death Steve Williams. It's like, okay, back then that was a big move. Now it's just anybody does a power slam. Anybody does a body slam.
Randy Orton does an amazing power slam off the ropes.
But it's not going to be a finisher.
No, it's a signature move.
Right.
It's his like how Hulk Hogan had the
Hulk up.
Yeah, the Hulk up. It's like they're getting wound up, they're getting energized. Crap. In the games, they call it something. But anyway, it's like their rally.
Yeah.
And, Randy Orton will hit his clothesline, and then he'll hit his clothesline, and then they'll bounce off the ropes, they'll come back, and he'll hit the clothesline. It's just sort of like how he does the DDT
from off the rope. Yeah.
It's a signature, but it's not a finisher.
Right.
And it's like when someone comes in, you want them to have a finisher that looks like it'll do damage.
And that's unique.
Yes. Like with Rhea Ripley's Riptide. It's a lame-looking pump handle slam.
Yeah.
Which, like, if she lifted him up, like, above her head or something, that'd be different. But she, like, lifts him up to about her shoulder and just drops him down. It's like, it doesn't even look as good as a regular pump handle slam. Unbelievable. Now, from a woman her size, it's a little more believable than, say, like, Roxanne Perez did it.
Yeah.
But it's still meh.
Yeah, it's
especially when she's got a bunch of other badass women on that roster.
Well, and Rhea, she has so much capability, so much talent. I feel like they could have given her a better finisher. I mean, you got like Liv Morgan doing Oblivion. I love that move.
The problem is that doesn't really look like it would do all that much damage the way she hits it.
No, it doesn't, but it's a unique finisher that it has excitement to it. She's bouncing off the rope, looking like she's going through and then pulls him back face first.
Yeah, it's basically a slingshot flatliner.
Right.
But then you have, like, Becky Lynch came in with the disarmor. It was a signature submission move we hadn't seen yet.
Yeah.
So it was exciting. Charlotte Flair with the
figure eight.
Yeah. It was a new version of her dad's, popular move.
Yep.
So they had that exciting factor, but it looked menacing.
It did. I will agree with that wholeheartedly.
And then you have, like, Finn Balor, who comes in and he's got the coup de grace. It's like, oh my god, he just jumped really high in the air and stomped on a guy's ribs.
With both feet, not just one. He's not trying to brace himself with one and stomp with the other.
No, but if you look at him, like, he tries to roll his feet off of him so he doesn't, Nia Jax him. But it's something that, you take a guy his size. Now, I mean, sure, he's incredibly, like, cut.
Yes.
But he's small in stature, so he uses that to his advantage. He has the ability to high fly, so he's like, I'm going to jump up, I'm going to go like 6 feet in the air, and then I'm going to come down and stomp on your ass with all of the gravity helping me.
Mm-hmm.
Looks devastating, looks freaking awesome. And it has all of the factors to the desired finisher.
It does. You are absolutely correct.
It's not the same as like a drop kick.
No, it's not.
And I think that's the big difference. Back then, you weren't in it for all the flashy moves. It was, you wanted to watch the technical thing.
Well, and back then, there wasn't as much money involved. So, I mean, I'm sure a bunch of those guys had other, part-time gigs that they were running. Aside from the normal full-timers that were on every week, like the Four Horsemen and Hogan and Savage and all the big names that we mentioned. But, there wasn't nearly as much money in that industry back then because they were split into different areas. And it wasn't until Vince, basically brought all of them into a national organization that.
Yeah, and you didn't really need it because you didn't have the big stage.
Yeah.
But you also have, like, some, I don't want to say all top guys, but you've got big names like The Undertaker and Kane who do a chokeslam. It's a super common move. But when they do it, it's different.
When they do it, they were the architects of it. They were the ones that made it what it was. Yeah. Anybody else now, it's like, okay, yeah, you can do a choke slam, but it's not going to be a finisher type.
No. Except for, I do like how Damian Priest did his. How the South of Heaven choke slam, how he goes down with him.
Yeah.
It changed it up just enough.
I agree. I think it did. I think it changed enough of the move to make it viable again for him. Yeah. But I don't think anybody else should be able to pull that off.
No, but it's just one of those, like, for a while there, lots of people were doing choke slams.
Hell, even Hurricane Helms tried.
No, he did it on some people. It's just he always tried to do it on the wrong people because that was what was funny.
Right.
But there are some people, like Shawn Michaels, with the Sweet Chin Music, will always be different from just a super kick.
Absolutely. I mean, there is a huge difference between Shawn Michaels hitting Sweet Chin Music and Jimmy and Jay just throwing super kicks back and forth in an entire match on WrestleMania.
I mean, just the way he moved, and I'm not talking just like when he's in the corner.
Stomping?
Yeah.
But the way he, like, almost leaped out to throw it.
Well, and he almost, like, wiggled his hips as he went in a way that it just looked so smooth.
It was a thing of beauty.
And I think that's the reason that so many people are like, I'm going to start super kicking, because they were inspired by just how graceful he was in his finish. Especially how he would kick people and then, like, twist and turn and lay on them. Or he'd go down with them and then kip up.
Yep.
When guys do stuff like that, other people want to capture that.
Yeah, when someone makes a move iconic, somebody else wants that move.
Because they look up to him and they either want to pay tribute or they want to be, like, not necessarily...
They want to be in the crowd of people who are synonymous with that move.
Yeah. But in your opinion, what would make a finisher, I don't want to say iconic, but, like, is it the person or the move?
So I think it's kind of a mixture of both. It depends on the move, because the move has to look like it could, in fact, finish somebody. But on the other hand, it also has to be from somebody that can deliver that move in such a way to make it look like that. So, I mean, super kick is, not a real flashy move by any stretch of the imagination, but as you alluded to, the way Michaels did it made it look like it would absolutely rock someone's head off their shoulders. And I think because it was him and he was able to sell it as such, it became what it was. The move, I can do a sidekick to somebody's head. And anybody can do this. But the way he did it is what made it iconic.
And he did it without ruining Bret Hart's career.
I was wondering if you were going to bring that up.
Fuck Goldberg.
Yeah, which, Gunther came out and said his all-time favorite wrestler, to Bret Hart himself, he says, "You will be second to my absolute favorite wrestler, Bill Goldberg." It was so funny.
And I know that it's probably going to feel like a kick to the head for you.
That was fantastic. I mean, he is such a freaking heel. He is like the mega heel.
But he's... The weird thing is with Gunther being a heel is, like, in his promos, the guy, like, he's got this big smile on his face, like, as he's doing the promos, and he looks like he's loving it.
He is.
And it's playing... just, it's really hard to see him out there, like, he just seems so happy to be out there, even as a heel.
Well, I see it, though, because he has that arrogant, pompous attitude that he's smiling because he's literally telling them, "I'm better than you. I'm so much better than you."
But it's one of those things for me where it's the finisher can actually make a person.
It can. Like,
because if you don't, I mean, obviously there are different things. Like Hurricane did not have a good finisher, but was a great comedic presence.
Yes, he was.
But then you have guys like Baron Corbin who have just... his end of days finisher was awesome, but he never really amounted to anything. So I feel like the finisher can help make or break a person, but I agree with you. It has to be with a certain person.
Yeah, it has to be with the right person. The person who can sell the move, who can make it believable. Someone with the attitude that you absolutely believe, yeah, that's the move that this person should be doing. If it's a technical person, it needs to be a technical move. You can't give a technical person like a lucha libre final move. Or, you can't give a big power man a lucha libre type of move.
You mean a big
man, Paul Heyman?
Another thing in regards to finishers is it's gotten to the point now where finishers don't even finish anymore. Like,
yeah.
so many times, like how many times have you seen Roman Reigns super punch someone and have him get up?
3-4 times in the same match.
Yeah, and then he'll deliver like 2 or 3 spears.
Yeah.
And it's, and this is from a top guy. And that's why, like Baron Corbin, I think only one person has ever kicked out of the end of days, and that was Drew McIntyre. And he was very careful of that. Like, he did not, if he was going to lose the match, he did not want to hit an end of days because he didn't want to be one of those people who it's like, oh yeah, I hit my finisher, but it doesn't really finish.
Yeah, I have an issue with that. I think it's getting to the point where it's taking away from the overall idea of having a finisher. Like, I feel like if you have a finishing move, it needs to be a finishing move. And if people are kicking out of it left and right, it's no longer a finishing move. Downgrade it to a signature move and find a real finisher. I don't like that, Brock Lesnar can kick out of 3 Superman punches, 2 spears.
And a partridge in a pear tree.
And a pear tree. I don't like that. If that's his finisher, then when he hits it, it needs to be a finish. But I understand what they're doing in the fact that it does bring that excitement when somebody does kick out of the finisher. It's like, oh my God, I can't believe that just happened.
Yeah, but don't make it like every match.
Yeah, because, I mean, over the course of time, I think they're going to find that the more and more they do it, the less, oh my God, it's going to be. I mean, and let's not forget moves that have been outlawed. You know, it used to be the pile driver was a huge finisher. Then it got outlawed because people were getting their necks broken.
Well, yeah, and there have been quite a few times where moves were banned for a while, and then they
returned later.
Well, Vince didn't want the AJ Styles to come in with the Styles Clash.
Oh, really? I didn't hear that.
No, because the person taking it has to have their head back, and if they don't, they're going to land with all their body weight on their neck, and he thought it was too risky.
Yeah, I can see that.
But luckily, AJ had people go to bat for him and say, like, if the people who are taking the move, do what they're supposed to do, which is our job, it's fine. It's on us, not him. And he's like, oh.
Yeah, I can see both sides of that coin.
And see, that's another one. It's one of those things where it kind of looks like it wouldn't really hurt. But if you think about it, you're landing face down and you've got a full person landing on top of you. So, while it may not look devastating, if you really think about it, it kind of feels like it could be.
Yeah, it does.
So, in your opinion, has the finisher evolution been a good thing or a bad thing?
So I think the evolution of finishers has been a good thing overall. But again, with the whole world kicking out of finishers, I think it's starting to degrade because the finisher isn't really a finisher anymore. I think that overall the moves themselves have become more exciting and more flashy and more technical. But I think they need to get back to basics in that a finisher is supposed to be a finisher, not a partway through the match I hit it and you kick out.
Now, do you have like a top 5 of finishers?
Top 5 finishers? So...
And this is not necessarily just the move, but if it's like the person landing, like for example, choke slam. If you think that Big Show's choke slam is in the top 5, but like Kane's isn't, that's perfectly acceptable.
Okay. So I think for my top 5, I'm going to have to go with... do I have to go in order?
No.
Oh, okay. So Jeff Hardy's Swanton Bomb, for sure.
At least back when he was younger.
Yeah, it was beautiful. I mean, I've never seen anything like that.
Even Matt Hardy makes fun of him now because he's, as he put it, he's just kind of like plopping down on people now instead of like sort of rolling off of them. He's just landing on them.
Yeah, I have noticed that. But Jeff Hardy's Swanton, Shawn Michaels' Sweet Chin Music. I mean, those are 2 obvious ones. Jericho's Lion Salt. I thought that was a very underrated finisher. And I think the reason it became underrated is because he was known in WCW for the Lion Tamer. and which he still used as the Walls of Jericho, but it was
Walls
altered.
of Jericho was basically just a Boston Crab.
Yeah, it was altered.
The Lion Tamer, he had like his knee
on the back of their neck,
on their and their spine.
Yeah,
and he had them bent differently.
And that was a move that Vince didn't want.
Yeah.
I was not a real big fan of Seth Rollins' stomp, the curb stomp. And I hate to say that because I absolutely love Seth Rollins. He is one of my current favorites, or at least was. I don't know if he's coming back or not. But I love him. The pedigree.
See, I thought Triple H's pedigree was better than Rollins.
Well, Triple H is the beginning of the pedigree, and I think his is amazing. But Rollins just has this thing about him that makes everything look better.
Like, my thing with him when he does the pedigree is, like, it feels like he rushes it. Like, he goes and he tries to grab their arms real quick and just drop. Like, Triple H, he would, like, throw their arm up, and then he'd, like, sort of elevate.
Yeah, I think for Rollins, because that's not his main finisher, quote unquote, I think that he uses it as a desperation move in a lot of his matches. Hey, let's see if this works. I'm having trouble. I got to throw this down. Rock bottom. Rock bottom is right up there. I love the rock bottom.
See, I thought that you would have gone with People's Elbow.
The rock bottom I loved the People's Elbow, but for all intents and purposes, it was an elbow.
Yeah. It was more, it should have been more a signature than a finisher.
It should have been. I mean, it had all the pomp and circumstance to it, but in the end, it was just an elbow. The rock bottom for me was what made The Rock. Let's see, that's Swanton, Sweet Chin,
Rock
bottom, the pedigree, and the Stone Cold Stunner. That would be my top five.
The Lionsault too.
Oh yeah, the Lionsault. So top 6.
Stone Cold Stunner was fantastic. It was one of those things where it wasn't just the stunner itself, but he had theatrics to it with either his facial expressions or he'd give you the middle finger.
He'd pop out of it and start screaming in your face with a middle finger.
Yeah, or he'd be like
shaking his head.
Feet. Or like you'd be drinking beer and he'd stop drinking the beer to kick you while you're drinking the beer. And all the ways that people could sell it.
Yeah, everything he did with that was spot on.
Yeah, so that's up there with me. Same with the RKO.
I figured.
Because the RKO is another one. It's just, there are so many different ways that Randy Orton has innovated it.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like, oh, I want to do a moose off the top rope, or a shooting star press off the top rope, or I'm going to get thrown off the top of a cage. Guess what? RKO your ass. And he's used it to counter the AA, the choke slam, twist of fate. You know, like a finisher that can be used as a counter is fantastic. And he's gotten to the point where he can be so creative with it that it's so fun to watch. And it's one of those things where, you know, someone grabs you by the throat and pulls your face down into the ground, it's going to hurt.
Yeah.
Rob Van Dam's 5-star frog splash.
Oh, yeah.
Just because, like, the way he goes through the air and bounces, just something about that was insanely glorious to me.
It was. It really was.
I'm avoiding yours.
Well, I mean, if it's your top 5, it's your top 5.
Well, but what if I want other ones too?
That's fine. That's fine. I took a top 6.
Okay. The Jackhammer. The whole reason I became a Goldberg fan when he was in WCW was because of the Jackhammer.
Can I be honest with you?
I had never seen a move like that before.
Can I be honest with you? I was not a Goldberg fan at all, ever. I did not like him.
I was a fan of him because of the move, man.
I was a fan of him because he was an Atlanta Falcon, but not as a wrestler. Because he was, in my opinion, in today's terms, he was a Wish.com Stone Cold Steve Austin.
The Jackhammer was still so freaking creative.
It was. I mean, I didn't find it as exciting because it was basically a suplex that got turned into a body slam.
Excuse me. You are also older than me. Well, I mean, you still are, but like when that was happening, I was still young.
Yeah, it was his spear that caught my eye.
Well, I mean, but it was a football tackle,
right?
And it was one of those. It was like, oh, that was awesome. But when he hit the jackhammer, it's like, oh my
god! I always thought they should have left it at the spear.
Okay, that's 4. God, man, now I have to narrow all the rest of these down.
I know there's so many of them that it's really hard to pick a top anything.
And like there are a bunch of them where it's the move itself isn't all, but it's the way that the person like hit it, or like in the case of Randy Orton, the ways that he can turn it, and the ways of the Stone Cold Stunner, the way people sell it. Like, I would love to be able to, like, oh, he suddenly became famous. WWE let him be on there. Oh, you get to sell a stunner.
Right?
Like, that was always a dream of mine growing up, was to be able to get stunned and sell it. Like, sell it like The Rock. Sell it like Shane McMahon. Sell it like Triple H. Actually, Triple H's, I think, was fantastic. The way he went back and just, like, flung over the rope.
Have you seen how Austin Theory's selling it these days?
Yeah. Well, and I love how Kevin Owens did it, and he jumped up and into an RKO. The problem is, like, he went down and then he jumped afterwards.
Yeah.
His timing was just a little bit off, but the creativity was amazing. Oh, there's so many good ones out there.
There are.
I was always a fan of Eddie Guerrero's Frog Splash, but that was just because of the little pizzazz he put on it with the arm shake, and he made it look smooth. As much as I hate saying this because it looked so stupid, but Shattered Dreams. It was one of those things. It looked so stupid, but that would just devastate someone if someone legitimately ran up from however far away
one turnbuckle to turnbuckle.
Yeah, and freaking punt kicked you in the nuts. If you were a dude, you're done.
You'd be puking up blood.
Like, that'd be it. You'd be done. And it's like, it was one of those comical moves, like the stink face.
Yeah, the stink face, I was not a fan of.